Prime Minister, welcome to 7:30.
Kia ora.
You say this is a trip to get to know our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, but that's a two-way street. It's also a chance for us to get to know you. Who is Chris Hipkins?
Look, I'm a boy from the hut in New Zealand. I've been in Parliament for about 15 years now. Very passionate Kiwi, someone who loves the outdoors, and very passionate about education, which was the portfolio that I had before, and someone who's really looking forward to continuing to strengthen the relationship between New Zealand and Australia.
Tell me this, how hard is it for someone to come out from under the shadow of a global phenomenon like Jacinda Ardern?
Oh, we're different people. We'll have a different style. I think New Zealanders and everybody else can judge me based on what I do. I'm not here to compare myself to anyone else, really. I'm just here to do the best job that I can do.
Just one more question to understand your philosophy. Jacinda Ardern told this programme not so long ago that politicians should show that they are also human. She said, I think we have a job to allow ourselves to display a little bit more of that. Do you share that philosophy?
Absolutely. And I think, in the time that I've been in politics, I've tried to continue to be myself and continue to be a normal human being. Like everybody else, I'll make the odd mistake from time to time. I've always believed if you make a mistake, you should just own it and move on. That's what I've tried to do. So I'm not purporting to be perfect, but I'll just continue to be me.
Bearing in mind that until recently you were holding domestic portfolios, I want to ask you a question about foreign policy. The former New Zealand Prime Minister John Key said recently that he does not see China as the aggressor that everyone else sees. Is he wrong?
Well, ultimately, John Key can justify his own comments, really. China is an incredibly important partner for New Zealand. We have an important trade relationship. I'm a former Minister of Education. We have an incredibly important education relationship that runs two ways with China. They'll continue to be a really important partner for New Zealand.
And do you see China as an aggressor?
Look, I don't think that kind of commentary is particularly useful. I see China as an important partner for New Zealand. There'll be occasions where we disagree with one another, and New Zealand will always continue to express to China areas where we disagree. That's what having an independent foreign policy is about. We'll continue to have an independent foreign policy, but we have a close relationship with China, and we'll continue to do that.
Nonetheless, there is a defence review underway in your country into what are being called, and I quote, challenges of a scope and magnitude not previously seen in our neighbourhood. Is this likely to lead to more defence cooperation with Australia?
New Zealand's defence cooperation with Australia is already incredibly strong, and it has been over a long period of time. We have a mutual interest in this region. Australia is our closest friend, our closest partner, and it will continue to be so.
Just to go back to that previous question, if China is not an aggressor, why is New Zealand conducting a defence review based on challenges of a scope and magnitude not seen in our neighbourhood?
Look, I think we're seeing a significant change in the overall international position in recent years. And of course, like every country, New Zealand is reviewing what that means for us.
Now, obviously that includes, you haven't named China in that change, but it includes China.
Among other challenges ahead, where there's a war going on in Ukraine, there are a variety of different things that are, shifting internationally, and New Zealand will continue to review our own position and make sure that we are contributing to international efforts, make sure that we are, continuing to look for our own interests, look after our own interests internationally.
Are you comfortable with your closest ally planning to acquire a fleet of nuclear submarines, as Australia is planning to do under the AUKUS programme?
Look, ultimately that's a matter for Australia. New Zealand has a very close relationship with Australia, as I've just mentioned. We have a close relationship with the US and the UK as well. Our nuclear-free policy continues. We haven't changed our position on that. That's a very long-standing policy for New Zealand.
Have you requested a briefing on the AUKUS programme?
I haven't had a detailed one as yet. I've only been in the job a few weeks, and I'm sure in due course I'll get more information on that.
But to be clear, there's no consideration of a change in New Zealand's approach to nuclear submarines because of the alterations under the forthcoming AUKUS programme?
No, New Zealand's nuclear-free policy is a long-standing one, and I don't envisage that changing anytime soon.
Earlier this week, you celebrated Waitangi Day, that is marking the treaty between British colonialists and the Maori population. Tell me this, does the existence of that treaty change the relationship between the Indigenous people of New Zealand and those who took over their land?
Oh, look, that's quite a complicated question. If we go back 183 years to when the treaty was signed, it was designed to ensure that we could live together in New Zealand without conquest and hopefully without conflict. In reality, in the 183 years that's followed since then, both of those things happened. There was a degree of conquest, there was certainly a lot of conflict. Many of the promises that were contained within the treaty were never honoured, or certainly weren't honoured for a significant period of time. So we've been through a process as a country of going back and reconciling for some of those past wrongs, and that process is an ongoing one. But it created an ongoing partnership, an ongoing relationship that allows Māori and non-Māori to live in New Zealand. That's something that I think is worth celebrating.
What is the relevance and the resonance of that treaty when you are formulating policy for Maori now?
I think if we think about the promise that was inherent within the treaty, it contained the promise that we could live together in peace and in harmony and without conflict and conquest. The reality is that didn't happen, and there is a legacy that's gone with some of the broken promises in there, and we do have to continue to confront that. The partnership that the treaty created between Māori and non-Māori is an ongoing one, so even after we have completed the treaty settlement process and the past historic grievances have been aired and have been and we've compensated for those, there'll still need to be an ongoing relationship.
Now, as you know, it's a very live debate in Australia, even at this stage in our history. Could a treaty help heal this country?
Look, I think Australia's in a very different position to New Zealand, and I wouldn't venture to be an expert or provide a commentary or an opinion on what's going to be best for Australia. I know that's a live topic for discussion here in Australia, and I wish you all well in that conversation. They can be difficult conversations, and elements of them will be challenging. But if you approach them in good faith and with goodwill, I'm sure that Australia will work its way through that.
Just one final question on Jacinda Ardern. We saw when she resigned that she was the subject again of the quite vile vitriol that she had been subject to at various times during her prime ministership. As a colleague and as a male colleague, how do you understand the expression of that vitriol? I'm thinking about demonstrations with posters like "The witch is ding dong, the witch is dead" and so forth. How do you respond to that sort of expression?
Oh, I think your characterisation of them as vile is absolutely correct. And there's no question, unfortunately, women in leadership positions, women in politics, but women in other leadership positions are the subject of far more abuse and vitriol than men doing comparable jobs are. And I think we do have a responsibility as men to step up and to condemn that and to speak out against it. Now, I think there are many men who feel a bit uncomfortable about that. And it's not because they want to endorse the sentiment, but because they don't want to be seen to be undermining the women who are the subject of it. But I think we do need to have honest conversations about it. It is happening, and it's not okay, and it's not fair.
Chris Hipkins, Prime Minister, congratulations again on your new position, and thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.